Hello and welcome to Assess and Accelerate Your Migration Plans. My name is Rodney Grilly. I'm a principal consultant at AWS in the migration and modernization practice. And in my role, I get to develop solutions to help customers like you accelerate your journeys to the cloud. Now, for my personal experience back in 2010, when I was working on our cloud journey, I didn't have these resources. NIST had just come out with some resources. They came out with some standards, definitions, and some templates. They were also referencing Amazon CTO Werner Vogel's cloud best practices and principles. But what I learned the most from was actual early adopters of the cloud, from people specifically like Adrian Cockcroft, who was leading Netflix migration to AWS at the time. And Adrian shared so much information and lessons learned that I was able to then use to improve and reduce risk on my strategy and execution of our journey. Fast forward 2 years, we had done our first modernization of an application onto AWS. And then later in that year, during the first reInvent in 2012, I was able to tell our story and share how we followed along in our journey. So if you're early on in your journey, you are building a strategy, you want to build a business case, this session is for you. I'm going to cover business drivers, strategies and best practices, migration processes and tools, and steps to migration success. Now, there's many drivers to the cloud for customers, whether it's digital transformation or reducing your operating costs, reducing that bottom line. But two of the most often ones that we see are, number one, customers wanting to reduce or downsize their data centers and consolidate them or shut down data centers altogether. And then the other is to build net new capabilities or greenfield applications like AI, ML, and data lakes that they just can't do on-prem cost effectively. So with that, and those customers also have many questions. They're asking, what can I move to the cloud? How should I move it? How much is it going to cost? What do I need to do to prepare my team? Do I need help? And through this session and the tools that I am going to be outlining, we can help you. Unlike back in 2010, we have the resources to help you along your journey to be more efficient and reduce that risk. So, how do successful customers do it? Let's jump in and first talk about a thoughtful, methodical plan for execution. It's critical and there's some key factors to it. Now, as I've worked with customers over the years, I have looked at what they're doing, and in many cases, they haven't had that C-level executive sponsor. Many of them are heads of VPs of shared services, but they're trying to transform an organization and they're running into policy changes that really they can't address at their level. So number one, get the right level of executive sponsor if you truly want to transform and maximize the value of the cloud to your organization. Second, don't overanalyze information. Because at Amazon, we have a mechanism called a one-way or two-way door. This is how we define if you can make early decisions based on the information you have at hand. A two-way door decision says that you can make a decision now. In 3 to 6 months, when you have more data, you can revisit that decision and you can either pivot or stay the course based on that additional learning and validation. Never make one-way door decisions drastically and without the right data, because that could be, hey, if I renew a data center lease for 3 years for millions of dollars, I cannot revisit that decision for the next 3 years or coming up to that. Next, you need to understand what you have in order to know what to move. You need deep insights into your infrastructure and applications before you can ever analyze them and determine strategies for executing and moving them. And finally, you need to become operationally ready. We have many customers that want to focus on moving to the cloud, but first they haven't validated that they're operationally ready to support those workloads as they move them. And so I'll talk about how we help you with that. And to help with this, we've developed a 3-phase journey. We did this probably 3.5 years ago to better communicate or give that mental model to a customer. In the assess phase, it's all about creating a case for change. This is building that business case and making sure you have the right information and understanding in order to come up with a valid plan. Next is the mobilize phase. This is where you have a plan now. Now you need to mobilize your team. You need to put the tools and skills in place, and you need to give them a safe place to learn. So when you go to execute at scale, think crawl, walk, run, you will have the experience already embedded in your teams, and you won't be relying on external resources to validate that you can actually do this. We want to build institutional knowledge and experience. And that gets you over to the migration and modernize. Now that you've established that operational readiness, you can move into that phase with confidence, knowing that you're not going to stumble or stall as you begin to execute your plan. AWS has a number of tools and services to help you with this. This slide shows you how we have different services across different phases of your customer journey. Now, I could never go over all of these today, but there's a few that I'm going to touch on that are very relevant to this stage in your journey. But AWS doesn't do it alone. We have a vast partner ecosystem of tools that were built and adding value on top of our base services. And for example, when you're doing your portfolio discovery and analysis, I'm going to be talking about power tools during this session. And when I talk about power tools, I talk about ways of discovering information. And I look at partners like our Flexera or Mobilize IT partners. What they provide is bundled offers where they provide the tooling and they provide the professional skills and experience, and you can buy it right off of our AWS Marketplace so they can come in and help you with your portfolio, and they can help you execute and get the information that you need. So make sure that you're leveraging both our services that we provide and our partner ecosystem, because it's there to help you accelerate your journey. Now let's drill into the assess phase more. So creating business cases on your own can be a time-consuming process and doesn't always identify the most cost-effective deployment and purchasing options. Our Migration Evaluator quickly provides a business case to make sound AWS planning and migration decisions. With our Migration Evaluator, your organization gets access to our resources, AWS expertise. It's not just a tool to go use and do it yourself. Use us to leverage and provide you that guidance as you're assessing and building your business case. Now, this will provide you visibility into the costs associated with multiple migration strategies, and that allows you to have options for your business case. And then finally, it gives you the insights on how to reuse existing software licenses, further reducing your overall costs and improving your business case. Licensing is a big area of focus and concern that you need to consider. Now we're going to go into a demo so you can understand how to get started with Migration Evaluator.
To get started with the Migration Evaluator, navigate to the product page on the AWS site and then click Start Building Your Business Case. On the page that opens, scroll down and provide your information to request an assessment. Soon after submitting your request, you'll receive an email with an invitation to create an account on the Migration Evaluator website. You will click on the hyperlink that goes to Create an Account. Provide your email address and a password, and then agree to the terms and sign up. Once you're signed into the site, you can begin your on-prem inventory discovery activities. Now let's take a quick look at some of the information contained in the sample business case summary. It has 5 main sections. In the overview, we can see a count of servers attached and attached block storage discovered by the agentless collector. SQL Server licenses were also discovered by the collector, in addition to environment and application groupings of business data. In the executive summary, we can see a set of compute and storage costs for both on-prem and AWS. It also shows low utilization, and which provides an area for elasticity and potential cost savings. The Data Insights page displays the percent of time servers were used, environment insights, and other licensing details. Now let's break into the cost modeling section of the business case. We can see 2 3-year savings plans. In the first savings plan, Microsoft licenses are provided by AWS. This report includes the number of SQL Server licenses AWS would provide as part of the cost. In the second savings plan, a company leverages its existing SQL Server license on AWS. This report includes the number of SQL Server licenses it would need, as well as the projected cost to pay Microsoft.
Now, another tool that we provide for your assess phase of your journey is our Migration Readiness Assessment. Now, making a transition to the cloud is a significant step for any organization. IT operations are so pervasive in every aspect of today's business that the thought of shifting how the company approaches these behind-the-scenes infrastructures and upfront interfaces and analytics can be daunting, not just for our IT professionals within the company that need to support them, but also for the C-suite and supporting teams involved, affected, or on point to make the transition happen. So, AWS offers a service and a process to help you take a health check. We meet you where you're at. Where are you? And for that, what's your overall readiness to move forward on your cloud journey? It's not just about considering the technical and tactical aspects of making a shift in your IT infrastructure and ops. It's about the strategic and operational alignment opportunities that expanded activities in the cloud can bring to your business. Now, it's based on the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, and our Migration Readiness Assessment provides a facilitated process of your organization and leadership to get a collective and common view of where you're at, where you need to go, and then to start to build that roadmap on how to get there. So now I would like to go through a deeper dive in what is involved in a readiness assessment.
There are a number of key stakeholders from both the business and technology sides of your organization that should participate in the readiness assessment. Ideally, you'll also have your CEO or CIO kick off the session in the morning and really set expectations for the day and the overall workshop. It is a full day of activities. We start off with introductions in the morning to get to know each other better. We then dive into business and technology goals and objectives. We provide an overview of the acceleration program and then go into each of the areas within the CAF perspectives to talk about the questions and have conversations and ratings. We sum it up at the end of the day by taking all that input and building out your detailed roadmap for your follow-on Mobilize phase. We use a set of tools like our online readiness assessment tool to capture and collaborate during the workshop. We also use our experience-based accelerator method to drive those interactive conversations and accelerate your outcomes. Within the tool, we have sections for each of the CAF perspectives. As we adjust during the conversations, we then go down to the assess when we're complete to show a set of tools, including a report where we capture those detailed next steps or actions. We have a heat map to show where you're trending red, yellow, and green, as well as scope and a radar. So what do you get at the end of the day? You get a detailed report that starts with the executive summary. It covers context, MRA objectives. It'll cover a set of strengths and gaps that we identified during the day. It will also include those other charts like the radar chart and the heat map with specific highlights for activities that you should focus on prior to starting the Mobilize phase. It will provide the scoring and those key observations by perspective, and then all the additional actions that we captured, which feed into that detailed roadmap for your Mobilize phase, which you can execute yourself or get assistance from a partner or AWS professional services.
Now that you've learned how we get you ready and build your roadmap during the assessment phase, now let's talk about Mobilize and getting your organization ready. As you built that roadmap in the Mobilize phase, we actually have it broken down into a set of accelerators. We have the portfolio, the migration, the platform, and the people accelerator. And we put all those together, and in a standard execution of that, we are using a 16 one-week sprint set of events where we take customers from nothing in AWS. They could be swiping the credit card for the first time, creating their first AWS account. And in those 16 weeks, we will help them discover and build a plan for migration. We will help them build their platform, implement security, extend their operational capabilities, do learning needs assessments of their staff, and then build a migration program, set of tooling, and factories needed to execute migrations into AWS. We then go through a series of migrations into AWS, and before they're complete, we have migrated 3 to 5 applications into AWS. They've gained that experience, they have the confidence, and they have validated the business case because now it's based on their organization and their staff's ability to move workloads into AWS versus something some consultant is telling them that they can do. So it's very important and powerful. I don't have time to go through all of these accelerators during the session today, but I do want to drill in more into the portfolio since it is a key aspect of building your plan. Many customers will come to us and say, I just want to modernize apps before I move them to AWS, and that's my strategy. Or I need to just move workloads into AWS first and then figure out what to do with them after I move there. And in many cases, we say, don't lock yourself into one strategy. If you do have a data center to shut down and you have a date, I hear this all the time, in 12 months, I need to be out of a data center. I have 2,000 servers and 500 applications. I can't use or be constrained by a modernization strategy because I won't meet that date. And then I'm potentially going to pay millions of dollars in renewing my lease or a compute network or storage tech refresh. And so I need to have a strategy that's flexible. Let me move those workloads using rehost or replatform into AWS so I can do my data center consolidation, so I can prevent that capital outlay of millions of dollars, and then take that money and invest it to optimize the applications and modernize them after I move it. At the same time, if a business unit needs to do greenfield applications and they want to use AI and ML and build data lakes and do other technologies that they just can't afford to do on-prem, you can have another strategy for that set of business outcomes, and they can be executed in parallel. Don't limit or constrain yourself to a single strategy that prevents all of your units of business to achieve their maximum value. Every time we meet with a customer, and everything that I've been talking about is based on good data collection. And what we find is there's disconnected and incomplete data. Customers have CMDBs that are 6 months out of date. They have disparate systems that have bits of information, but it's not aggregated and it's not current. I talked earlier about power tools. I talked about our partners. It is extremely important to collect and maintain accurate information, especially at the port, protocol, and process level for your infrastructure and applications if you want to build a standard set of strategies and wave plans to execute your migration. And that allows you then to take that information and visualize it in many of these tools that partners provide, so you can then determine which R's you're going to apply to it. And as we've looked at customers over the years, we see a pretty common distribution on average for customers. On the left, you can see that they're retiring about 20% of their older applications that just aren't adding business value anymore. Another 20%, they're actually moving to SaaS. Instead of investing to refactor or modernize those apps, they've determined that they're just common commodity business processes that a SaaS solution will satisfy. And so that's what they do. They move to that. On the far right, there's a small percentage that they're actually doing those new greenfield applications, new business apps. They want to do serverless applications with AI, ML, and others. And in the middle, where they're shutting down and doing data center consolidations, here's where roughly the 50%, they're either rehosting if they can move it directly into AWS, or they're replatforming it if the operating systems are just too old and they aren't supported in the cloud. Now I'd like to go into more detail about the tools and the techniques we use to help you build your portfolio.
Now let's take a deeper look at what we do during the portfolio discovery and analysis activities. So the first thing I have on the screen is a timeline, and each of these sprints is 1 week. So you can see that there's activities like kicking off and long-range planning, as well as pre-party planning that we identify. We then have a series of experience-based accelerators, including the Portfolio Discovery Workshop. This is where we are installing discovery tools, as well as ensuring that they can connect to and collect the information needed. We then, in the next week, go into a portfolio analysis party where we look at the migration strategies and some of those things that I was talking about before. We look at the dispositions of the applications, and we also look at do a deeper dive on the pilot applications from a discovery perspective. Over the next few sprints or weeks, we're continuing to iterate on these activities. You can see down here we also are working on the TCO and business case, and we're starting to build our draft wave plan. So what are some of these items at the next level? The first is the application selection criteria. So during the Mobilize phase, there's certain apps that you want to move and certain apps that you don't want to move. So we provide prescriptive guidance on selection criteria for Mobilize, as well as those applications that you should avoid. We then go, and even though we're going to use discovery tools to collect information, we still need information from the business owners as well as the technical leads for the apps. The way we collect that is through a series of workbooks that we work with those stakeholders to fill out to get that information that you can't get from a system. There's a lot of details here, and we typically customize this before sharing it with too many within the organization because we might add questions or remove questions based on the uniquenesses of the customer's environment. Next, we actually take the applications that we're targeting, and based on the R that we're looking at, we would complete an application design template. It has a component diagram that shows all the runtime components as well as all those operational components that we're proposing. We also calculate an application level annual run rate estimate with a number of assumptions so the customer gets a better understanding of what it will cost to host and manage this individual application. Then for every one of the items on the context diagram, we go into the component details and provide that next level of detail about what the item is, how it's configured, how do you deal with non-production environments versus production environments. We next go over technical operational components. In many cases, these are shared common capabilities across many applications, and in some cases, they have to be unique based on requirements for the application. We look at the SDLC components. How are you storing and managing your source control as well as managing your CI/CD pipelines? And then which environments are you using and what's the availability? Many times we want to use 5x12 for those non-production environments, so you can shut things off and maximize your cost savings. Finally, we identify mandatory tags that we will use to validate or actually failed builds and deploys based on them based on resources that don't include them. After we go through all these things, our real goal is to build a prioritized wave plan. And so now I want to show you just a simple one. Our wave plans start off with the wave summary. It includes a number of waves. They have start and end dates, usually around the 6-week time frame or more. Then we go into the number of applications, the number of servers, and the number of databases included in those waves. We can then drill in deeper to see specifics about each application in each wave, some business criticality and the business units and other metadata that we want to store, as well as the servers and the databases included in each wave. With this wave plan, you now have your basis for validating your business case, as well as planning and executing your phase 3 migration.
Now that we've gotten ready during the Mobilize phase, we've built our wave plans, we're ready to go from that crawl to walk to run. Their customer already has the experience. They've already started migrating applications. The wave plan has the backlog of apps to go beyond that. And so now, when we look at the flow during the migration phase, you have that migration plan, but you also have the program in place. You got to have all the tools to marshal all these individuals and to work together. You have the tooling to execute the migration, as well as the actual activities of migrating workloads into AWS. And in order to do this efficiently, you need to track it. You need to have reporting and dashboarding, and you need to have insights and identify risks or constraints as they come up. Tracking is essential for this. And that migration wave plan that we just went over and building it, that's not a one and done plan. You build the wave plan, you start to execute it. Within weeks or months, your business is changing. Goals and timelines are changing. You need to actively review and revise it wave over wave in order to ensure it stays in sync and you stay on track to achieve your outcomes. One of those tools that we talked about to help migrate, especially in the rehost scenarios, is our Cloud and Door migration service. This is a rehost solution that's provided at no cost to you. But when you're using Cloud and Door, there's still manual steps to do on top of it. So the builder team that I'm on developed a Cloud and Door migration factory solution that does additional automation and orchestration. So every time you migrate a server, there's less moving parts and less activities that your staff has to perform. These are critical to be part of your overall migration program in order to achieve the velocity. So in summary, what are those steps to migration success? Let's go over what we've covered. The first thing is your business case. Hopefully you can see now how you can use our migration evaluator service in order to build your unique business case based on data collected from your infrastructure and applications. Next, you need to do that portfolio discovery and analysis. It's critical. How could you build a plan if you don't know what you're moving and what you need to and how you need to move them? Next, walk before you run. And in order to do that, that's why we have our assess and mobilize. Mobilize gives you that safe place to learn. It gives your team the space to fail fast and gain the experience and confidence. So when they go into the migration phase, they can achieve and sustain a velocity needed to meet your deadlines. Next, everything needs to be iterative. We are using lean and agile techniques. When you finish a migration wave, you do a retrospective. You identify what could have been done better, you go back and improve your runbooks, and then when you execute the next, you validate that your improvement has actually added the value you expected. Iterate, rinse, and repeat, and you will be well on your way to having a very efficient migration and overall cloud journey. And then finally, if you need help, AWS has a vast ecosystem of accredited migration partners. Pull them in to help. You can also pull in AWS professional services. We're here for you. You've got this. You have the information. It's not 2010. There's resources that you can bring to bear. Leverage our partners, leverage our services and expertise, and you will be successful in your journey to the cloud. There's a number of online resources that we have for overall migrations. Please leverage them. Go to our YouTube videos for the other sessions and take advantage of all these rich resources that I didn't have when I was going through our journey. So I want to thank you so much for all your time today. And please, feedback's important to us. So if you can complete the session survey, that will give us the information we need and feedback to improve our sessions in the future. Thank you.